They say he pulled away. But you didn't change. You gave him softness. You gave him light. You brought peace into the room, stayed up when he couldn't sleep, listened even when you were breaking too. And yet, he drifted. If you've ever felt the ache of giving your whole heart to someone who seemed to only take, or worse, someone who looked into your soul one day and looked right past you the next, this is for you. Because somewhere, deep down, you've asked yourself a question you didn't dare speak aloud. Why wasn't I enough? That question, it doesn't come from weakness. It comes from depth, from a soul that's tried to love with everything it had. But the truth no one told you is this: men don't stay for your body. Men don't bond because you were nice, or low maintenance, or never complained. A man bonds when something inside you reflects something he spent his whole life searching for, even if he doesn't know what that is yet. And sometimes, he's not ready to see it. This isn't a lesson, it's a mirror, a soft reflection of why certain men vanished, even when you loved them well, and why the man who stays really stays won't be the one who is merely attracted to your presence, but the one who is pierced by your essence. If you've ever been told you were too much, or too emotional, or too deep, this is the place where none of that is too anything. This is your space now. If you're healing, if you're growing, if you're tired of playing small to feel loved but still aching for a connection, that's true. Stay here, because what you're about to hear may change how you understand love, and more importantly, how you understand yourself. Take a deep breath. Let go of the last time you were ghosted. Let go of the last night you cried into your own pillow, wondering what more you had to do to keep someone. This is not about becoming better. This is about becoming real. And maybe, just maybe, hearing something that makes you feel less alone. If you're ready for a kind of love that begins with truth, hit the like button so more people like you can find this. Subscribe if your heart is hungry for what the surface never feeds. And take this moment, just one, to be still with your soul. Because the next few minutes, they're for her. He didn't fall for you because you were beautiful, though you are. He didn't fall for you because you were sweet, though you've bent yourself backward to be. He felt something he couldn't name, and that scared him. Men are not taught to feel deeply. They're taught to win, to conquer, to chase, to succeed. And so, when a woman enters his world and touches the place, he never shows the part he keeps. Even from himself, he doesn't know whether to hold on or run. You weren't just another woman. You were a mirror. And what he saw in you wasn't just your tenderness, or your smile when he walked in, or how you made coffee just the way he liked it. He saw parts of himself reflected in your presence, the parts he buried. The boy who wanted to be loved, but was told to be strong. The man who longed for warmth, but was taught to hide it. He saw, for a brief moment, that love could be different. But different is unfamiliar, and unfamiliar feels unsafe. You didn't lose him because you weren't enough. You lost him because you saw too much. And for some, being seen is terrifying. They'll say they're not ready. They'll say the timing is wrong. They'll say they're working on themselves. But beneath every excuse is a truth they don't know how to speak. I don't know how to receive what you give. You love in a way that reaches beyond the surface. And some men aren't ready to be reached. Because your presence doesn't just offer comfort, it confronts. It asks, are you willing to meet me here, in this depth? And that's not a question every man can answer. See, there are women who attract attention. Then there are women who awaken something ancient, something sacred in a man's soul. You are the second. But when a man hasn't faced his wounds, hasn't made peace with his shadows, hasn't learned to sit with silence instead of running, he will confuse your depth with danger. Because love, real love, does not always feel like fireworks and fairy tales. It feels like stillness. It feels like home. It feels like the truth he never knew he needed. But he has to be ready to stop running. He has to be ready to see himself. And until then, he'll chase what doesn't challenge him. You are not too much. You are not too deep. You are not too intense. You are just not safe for someone who is not ready to be fully seen. So when he left, it wasn't rejection. It was reflection. His absence only confirmed how powerful your presence truly is. And when the man who has done his work meets you, he won't just notice your body. He won't just admire your beauty. He will bow to your soul, because he will recognize it. He will feel like he's come home to something he lost a long time ago. And that's when you'll know You never had to be less to be loved. You only had to wait for the one who was ready to meet you where you already are. Sometimes, it's not that he didn't care. It's that he cared and didn't know what to do with it. There's a quiet kind of panic that happens in a man when he realizes he feels something real. Not lust, not control, not ego, but a soul-level stir. A peace that unnerves him because he's never known it. You didn't push. You didn't chase. You just were. And that, in itself, was disruptive. Because when a woman stands rooted in her own presence, when she holds a gaze without performing, when she speaks without trying to impress, she becomes undeniable. Not just attractive, not just desirable, but unshakable. And for a man who's been taught to find value in being needed, your wholeness is confusing. He's used to being the rescuer, the fixer, the hero, but you didn't need saving. You needed truth. And truth is intimidating. He looked at you and saw clarity and realized how unclear he was inside. He heard your softness and realized how hard he's become to himself. He watched you love gently and realized how long it's been since he allowed love in without a fight. So what did he do? He pulled back. He rationalized. He said things like, "You deserve better." And he was right, but not for the reasons he thought. You see, you deserve someone who doesn't flinch at your depth. Someone who doesn't punish you for your sensitivity or shrink from your emotional honesty. Someone who doesn't take your silence as a threat, but as an invitation to lean closer. And no matter how strong your connection felt, no matter how good it was on the good days, it was never about the connection. It was about capacity. Your soul was never the issue. His readiness was. There's a moment when a man meets a woman who sees straight through him, and he has two choices: heresis, or he retreats. Not because you asked for too much, but because you offered too much. Offered peace, offered emotional intimacy, offered the kind of presence that asks him to drop the mask and be real. But the truth is, most men haven't been taught how to be real. They've been taught to be impressive. And there's a difference. Impressiveness is loud, but love is quiet. It listens, it stays, it chooses. And you were never here to be impressive. You were here to be true. And the man who will bond with your soul will not fear that truth. He will meet it with his own. He will not be drawn by how well you accommodate him, but by how deeply you anchor yourself. He won't be intimidated by your emotions, he'll be moved by them. He won't see your softness as weakness, he'll recognize it as strength he's never known. And when he does, you'll understand why the others had to leave. Not because you weren't lovable, but because your kind of love demands presence, and not everyone is ready to stay. There is a moment, quiet, private, sometimes aching, when you realize that your heartbreak wasn't random. It wasn't punishment. It wasn't karma. It was a mirror. Every man who left revealed something. Not about your worth, but about your alignment. You kept trying to pour your soul into hands that weren't open. You offered presence to men who only knew performance. You kept asking, "What did I do wrong?" But what you did was love purely. And what they did was recoil. Because purity is sharp. It cuts through pretense. It holds up a light to the places people don't want seen. And you are light. Not the kind that blinds. The kind that softens. The kind that warms. The kind that says, "It's safe now. You can put the armor down." But some men don't know how to live without their armor. It's all they've ever had. So when you come along clear-eyed, open-hearted, deeply grounded, they mistake your peace for a threat. Because when you're not chasing them, when you're not over-explaining, when you're not performing, they're forced to face the echo of their own emptiness. You don't fill the silence. You invite it. And that silence reveals everything. That's why he bonded with your soul, then ran. Because even if only for a second, he felt something ancient stir inside him. A memory of what love could be before fear, before control, before power games and half-truths. You gave him a glimpse of the real thing. But the real thing requires real work. And here's the truth that stings at first but sets you free later. Some men are not ready for a woman who reminds them of their soul. They're still loyal to their wounds. Still trying to win validation through conquest, not connection. So they'll chase bodies. They'll collect admiration. They'll avoid anything that feels too vulnerable. Because vulnerability asks for surrender. And surrender feels like death to a man who has lived in emotional survival mode. But you were never here to be a transaction. You were never meant to be a chapter in someone's ego story. You were born to love in full color. And one day, that color will be met with equal depth. Not a man who wants to possess you, but a man who wants to witness you, who leans into your silence, not away from it, who doesn't just touch your body, but listens to what lives beneath your skin, who knows that your soul isn't a mystery to solve, but a temple to respect. And that man, he won't bond because of the way you smile or how well you fit his image. He'll bond because your soul feels like something he once believed was too good to be true, but now, finally, believes he's worthy of. When that man arrives, the one who's done the slow, silent work of returning to himself, something shifts. There's no fireworks, no sudden rush of obsession, no manic chase. It's quiet, unshakable, present. He doesn't need you to prove anything. He doesn't flinch when you cry. He doesn't pull away when you go still, because he's met his own stillness. He's faced his own shadows, and he doesn't confuse intimacy with danger anymore. He knows now that love isn't a performance, it's a presence, and your presence invites him home, not to a house, not to a role, but to a version of himself that no longer hides. He doesn't just love the parts of you that are easy to hold. He honors the parts that once made others leave. Your depth doesn't scare him, it steadies him. Your fire doesn't burn him, it warms him. Your softness doesn't confuse him, it calls him. And for the first time, you won't be the only one holding space. You won't have to ask for reassurance. You won't have to overgive just to feel safe, because he's not here to take from you. He's here to meet you. And when you look into his eyes, you'll know. This is not a man who is trying to escape himself. This is a man who's already returned. And now, he's arrived for you. But the beauty is, by the time he gets to you, you won't be waiting in longing. You won't be trying to mold yourself into someone easier to love. You'll be whole, rooted, radiant without reaching, because you finally learned something you were never supposed to forget. You are not here to chase. You are not here to earn. You are not here to be enough for someone who is empty. You are already full, already home. And the love that lasts, the kind that bonds soul to soul, doesn't arrive to fix you. It arrives to join you, to stand beside you, not above you, to walk with you, not ahead of you, to learn with you, not teach you. And when that happens, it won't feel like a high. It will feel like breath, like rest, like recognition, because love, real love, doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with peace. You'll feel it in the spaces where you used to feel tension, in the quiet moments between conversation, in the way his eyes don't just look, they see. There will be no performance, no anxious over-explaining, no wondering if you said too much or not enough, because finally, you'll be allowed to just be. He won't be overwhelmed by your strength or confused by your softness, because he's held both in himself. He's no longer at war with who he is, so he won't make you feel like you have to be smaller to keep his love. He'll find beauty in the way your voice quivers when you speak your truth. He'll see power in the way you set boundaries without anger. He'll feel awe in the way you carry your story, not as a victim, but as a witness. He won't need to possess you, because he'll feel safe beside you. And that's what no one tells you. The soul doesn't bond through desire, it bonds through safety. You become the woman he never knew. He needed, not because you filled a role, but because you never asked him to play one. You met him in the raw, real breath, held in kind of way that most people run from. And he stayed, not because it was easy, but because it was real. He didn't need you to be perfect. He just needed you to be true. And now, you see why it never worked before. Why the others pulled away. Why they chose what was convenient over what was meaningful. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't theirs either. It was timing. It was capacity. It was truth meeting people still living in illusion. And now, you don't just know love. You recognize it. You can feel the difference. Love that drains you is not love. Love that asks you to hide is not love. Love that plays games with your worth is not love. Love is the one that sees your shadows and chooses to stay. Not to rescue you, not to fix you, but to walk with you through the dark without flinching. Because when a man bonds with your soul, He's not just bonding with your beauty, your body, your words. He's bonding with your essence, the you that existed before you learned to perform, the you beneath the masks. And that kind of bond, it doesn't break when things get hard. It deepens, it roots, it breathes. And now, finally, you can too. You don't have to guess anymore. You don't have to read between texts, second-guess silences, or shrink your emotions just to keep the peace. Because when a man truly bonds with your soul, your truth doesn't push him away, it pulls him closer. He doesn't flinch at your feelings. He welcomes them. He doesn't call you too sensitive. He leans in, because he wants to understand. And you start to see something rare. He's not afraid of the weight of your heart. He's built to hold it. This is the difference between a man who's curious about your body and one who's in awe of your being. The former wants your highlights. The latter wants your shadows. The former wants your energy. The latter wants your essence. The former wants a good time. The latter wants a true bond. You've spent enough nights wondering if you were too intense, too needy, too emotional. But none of that scared him, because he wasn't looking to be entertained. He was looking to be met. And you met him not with perfection, but with presence. That's what reaches a man who is ready. Not the right look, not the right timing, not the right game, but the right truth. The one you hold in your silence. The one you whisper when you're not sure he's listening. The one that says, I won't abandon myself to be loved. Because you've done that before. You've watered yourself down, smiled when you wanted to cry, stayed when you should have walked, settled for connection that came with conditions. But not this time. This time you didn't pretend. You didn't chase. You didn't prove. You opened. You showed up. You stood in your depth, even when it was lonely. And that's when everything changed. Because when you stand in your truth long enough, the ones who cannot meet you will fall away. Not as punishment, but as protection. And the one who remains, the one who comes not to possess, but to partner, will feel like a return. Not to a fantasy, but to something real, to a kind of love that doesn't spark and burn out, but one that glows quietly, steady, sacred. You will recognize it, not by the way it rushes in, but by the way it settles, the way it stays. Because when a man bonds with your soul, truly bonds, there is no performance left, only presence. And presence is the only place where love can root and finally grow. So now, you sit with the truth. The ones who walked away, they didn't walk away from you. They walked away from the parts of themselves they weren't ready to face. Your soul just happened to be the mirror. And mirrors don't lie. You could have dimmed your light. You could have played small, stayed quiet, softened your boundaries just enough to be easier to love. But something in you, maybe the deepest, most ancient part, refused. Because you knew. You've always known. The love you want isn't surface deep. It doesn't come from chasing or proving or pretending. It comes from resonance. From two souls meeting in the space where nothing needs to be earned, only revealed. So here you are now. Not broken, not too much, not too complicated, but awake. And from this place, you no longer beg for breadcrumbs. You no longer fear being alone. Because alone, you found something no man ever gave you. Wholeness. And with that wholeness, you begin to notice a different kind of man. One who doesn't flinch at your fire. One who sees your past but doesn't make it your prison. One who holds space without needing to fix. Who listens without waiting to speak. He doesn't bond with your body to escape himself. He bonds with your soul because he's finally met his own. And in that bond, you exhale. Not because you've finally been chosen, but because you finally chose yourself. That is what calls in the one who stays. Not your silence, not your sacrifice, but your truth. So if you've loved deeply and lost, if you've been left in your vulnerability and made to feel ashamed of your emotional honesty, if you've been told to be less, don't forget this. You weren't too deep. They were too afraid. You weren't too emotional. They were too disconnected. You weren't too much. You were just too real for a world that often teaches men to fear what is honest. But the man who no longer fears himself, he won't fear you. He'll sit in the places others ran from. He'll find safety in the places others tried to silence. He'll love the parts of you that others said made you unlovable. And when that day comes, you won't have to fight for it. You'll just know. Because this time, love won't ask you to abandon yourself. It will ask you to return. And in that return, everything changes. Thank you for staying with me to the end. If something here made your heart feel seen, take a moment and share this with someone else who needs it. Like the video if it helped you breathe deeper. Subscribe if you're choosing a new kind of love, the kind that begins inside you. Until next time, stay true, stay grounded, and never apologize for your depth.